Hello and welcome to the Ask BR on Super Deluxe, and we got a ton of questions obviously. So the people who organized this put together a bunch of them. If you had a question and it's not answered here, really sorry, but then we just were deluged by questions for this episode. And I'm going to begin with Arjun Vishwanath's question. The significant black plastic covers in Sethupathi. That seems to be the one question that we got the maximum things for. So what I think is this: it's like when this transformation happens, right? When this boy is cloned into another thing, there's this kind of a space-time thing happening. And I think there's a slight gravitational effect that happens when the world just kind of... See, if you see a sci-fi movie, a proper sci-fi movie, when transformations like this happen, there's usually a flash of lightning or some kind of effect that shows that this transformation is happening. Or maybe a time machine is spinning or something like that. Here it's a very simple, elegant effect where some gravitational thing is happening and thing. Even as I'm speaking this, I'm wondering, does it really matter that you do not know what this black plastic bag is doing? It doesn't, because you're still following the story. It's an effect that's there in the side, and if it's something that you can interpret and satisfy yourself with, like I just did, you're okay. But otherwise, it's still not killing the story. And that's why I'm coming to a point before I go on to the other questions, is that see, there are lots of lovely details in this movie, and those of us who love details, we're going to watch this movie many, many times and kind of like look for all these little connections and all these things. But it's important to also go back and enjoy the movie as an experience, not get hung up too much with the micro things, because a movie like this with a narrative like this is not a very common thing in Tamil cinema. So just sit back, enjoy the bigger picture, the larger picture, and kind of then get into all this, what is this black plastic bag doing kind of thing. Varun Radhakrishnan asks, what do you think of the key hanging in the car between Bembu and Mughal? In one frame, the key hangs directly in front of the dead guy. Almost felt to me like he was the key to a deadlock of a marriage. What are your thoughts on this? And all the props used all over. Actually, I haven't figured out a meaning exactly for the key as yet. But again, the props used all over are very deliberate. Like one of the props that really intrigued me was the stained glass window in Vijay Sethupathi's house. Now, a stained glass window is not something you typically find in a Tamil house, in a Chennai house typically, and they're not Christians exactly. So, and stained glass is usually used in churches and other kinds of things, or people who like those kinds of things. So, in a middle class household like this, to find that kind of a stained glass thing was a little thing. So I'm like, is that a connection to the slightly Christian angle in Mysskin's story, or what's happening? So the props in this movie are very deliberate, and they are also things that we've got to look at in detail and see how they link to the various stories. So, but this key, I was not able to quite figure out, and it didn't kind of seem to me again like something that needed to be cracked in order to follow the story. Ananthan says, I'd like to know how the use of metaphors in Super Deluxe, the ants on the wall, the black covers on the floor, the cat t-shirt that turns into a rabbit, how are these impacting the narrative? The cat t-shirt turns into a rabbit? I'm not sure about that, but see, the cat may be the Schrodinger's cat, because you're talking about cloning, you're talking about two things existing in different states at the same time before they are measured, right? That's the whole Schrodinger experiment. And the Schrodinger used a cat, actual cat. But this is not a metaphor actually. This is more like something that, a metaphor is something that stands for something else. But here I think like the ants on the wall, the centipede and all those things, like the alien itself, they're all creatures among which we are a part of, and we are just one among the many things on this planet. And just because we have a higher consciousness, it doesn't mean we are the highest consciousness, because there exists that alien with a consciousness that's even higher than our consciousness. So I think this movie kind of puts man in its place and says, you may be above the centipede and the ants, but then you are still below the alien. So I think that kind of stuff that we can talk about all day, but I'm just going to go on to the next question with Nikhil. Don't you think it's too early for the audience of all centers to accept and understand this film? Despite having great content and technical brilliance, the movie has to suffer being restricted to city audience. See, I'm saying even in the city audience, there are people who kind of struggle to get this kind of movie because we are not used to this kind of content, right? See, Tamil cinema especially, we don't have a tradition of art films or festival films. Malayalam cinema has it, Bengali cinema has it, Tamil, Telugu and all. We don't have a tradition of art cinema. Maybe once upon a time, John Abraham made Agrarathil Kadidai. There are very few examples of films like that, because even if you take a movie like Sila Nerangalil Sila Manithargal, for it looks like an art film now, but it's very much within the ambit of there is this girl, something happens to her, how she decides to lead her life. So there's a very clean line to follow through, as opposed to something abstract, something like you're wondering, I just saw that, but what happened in that scene is, that kind of stuff that we have never had in Tamil cinema except for maybe one or two very rare examples. So the audience needs to be trained first to view that kind of movie. You cannot train the A center and the B center and the C center audience at the same time, in the sense that you cannot make a movie like this and then say, I'm going to make it for all centers to understand. I think you just have to make the movie that you're trying to make and then hope that the audiences that like it from each of these centers hop on board, and hopefully they'll spread the word, and then 2 people will make some similar movies, and then 3 more people will follow suit and say, okay, you know what, people are talking well about Super Deluxe, so maybe it's time that we tried something like that. So the audience taste also has to grow, and that has to kind of accept this kind of thing as normal. I think that's when films like this can be truly successful all over. Akilan Kanakaraj says, isn't all the irrelevant things from the context of the film Alien airplane delivering TV? Airplane delivering TV? Black covers, you use deliberately a dialogue for the end of the film. Humans try to interpret unrelated things into meaning to tease us. I have an explanation for the Alien, like I just said before in the previous question. Another thing is also that if you notice the pattern in the movie, each of the stories, the 3 stories, has an alien element, somebody that comes from the outside and kind of interrupts life. In the Vijay Sethupathi story, he is the alien element because they expect a man, he comes as somebody else and interrupts that story, kind of impacts that story. In the story of the boys, of course, there's a literal alien, but in the Mugil and Samantha story, the dead body is there, which is again an alien kind of thing in that atmosphere, because people do not, it's a strange thing to have in that surrounding. So I think that's also very consistent, even if you don't want to take it as the philosophy thing. So I think everything is used very deliberately, and not just for the dialogue at the end of the film. The dialogue at the end of the film is just kind of wrapping up a little of the philosophies here and there, but I don't think these things are planted there so that you can get the dialogue at the end of the film. I don't think that's the thing. Shafi says, do you think it's okay to guess which one of the writers did their respective stories? My guesses are Mugil and Vembu, Thiagarajan Kumararaja, Gaji Boys, Nalan Kumarasamy, Arpudam Dhanasekar, and Leela Mysskin, and Manikam Shilpa by Neelan K. Sekar. I really don't know, because the other thing that happened is Thiagarajan Kumararaja took all these stories and he rewrote them the way he wanted. So there is him in each one of these stories, but which individual stories they are not saying. So I don't want to say, because yes, it does seem obvious. The most obvious thing is that the Arpudam story seems to be Mysskin's forte. That's his area of operation. But maybe Thiagarajan Kumararaja said, okay, this is what I expect from you, but let me try this and maybe you'll work on it better. I don't know. But I'll tell you something. I really enjoyed Mysskin's performance in this movie. I mean, one of the things I couldn't do in my reviews, talk about each and every performance, simply because I was running out of time. But Mysskin had this amazing, he has an amazing presence, and obviously he's not going to fit every single role, but here there was that bit of madness which always you associated people who started suddenly, the eyes have opened and they've joined a new cult kind of thing. That bit of madness is there, that compassion is there, and even the way he says that casual line, when he comes to the point where the boy with the screwdriver is lying there, he tells, na kandupidichada nee ivanu kandupidichitana, or something like that. He says, has the boy found out the same thing about the mother that I did? And that gives you it's such a light line, and it's not used in a heavy manner, because it's not like it's in the middle of all these chaotic things happening around the boy's accident. He does it so well, and I think he's very underrated as an actor, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to tell how great he is in this movie. Prasanna Venkatesan says, Yuvan has given us one of the best background scores. Music was powerfully minimalistic and versatile in a genre. Do you think there would be cues written in the script to get it to such perfection? I don't think there were cues written in the script. I would think more like they kind of did a rough edit and then said, this part needs music, this part doesn't need music, because some parts they clearly decided that they're going to use background sound, and I think maybe those cues were written into the script, but I don't think the music itself was used, because sometimes when you watch a scene play out, you may realize that it needs a bit of music or doesn't. So it's not possible to always fit all these cues into a music. Imaya Varaman says, this movie is all about sex in different perspectives for children, teenagers, young, old, before and after marriage, with and without mutual consent. micro and macro levels, and also about the third sex. You even see death by sex, which is generally associated with life. Only agree. Yeah, so it's like, and sex is about procreation in a way, right? And it's like, and it's I mean, it's pleasure, but it's also procreation, and the movie is about life in general. So yes, you do have, like, even when you have the third sex, and it's also about, like, what's nice in this observation is that it comes in different ways. For example, Samantha didn't want to have sex, the man, she invited a depressed former lover home, and the sex just happened. But later, the cop kind of uses sex as a weapon to say, if you want this, then he uses it as a bargaining tool. So the way the sex is used is also, it's with the boys, the sex is a very directing. They are horny, they want to watch a matter movie. That's the most direct use of sex. But everywhere else, the kind of way sex makes its way into the movie is kind of, there's a variety is what I'm saying. But yeah, there is a lot of sex in this movie, and even the songs in this movie. There's a lot of songs used in such sexual situations in films that are used in this movie. Akshay Kannan says, what do you think about the significance of blue and red in the film? I see them as masculine and feminine energy. With this interpretation, I see the film as a cosmic dance of intimacy between the concepts of Shiva and Shakti, a beautiful thesis in life itself. That's a great way to look at it. For me, the blue is a reflection of the Arpudam character being having had that near-death experience at sea, which is why his walls are all that marine blue, and that I think is there. And I think, I mean, I've seen very few movies that have been so carefully color coded and with the same color codes. So it's practically like the film operates only within a very certain color palette, very limited color palette. Whether it's masculine or feminine, you could also see it as hot and cold, because it's like red, orange is hot, it's a warmer color, blue is a cooler color. So that mix is also happening in the movie, because the movie is a mix of all these hot situations in the sense of very aggravated situations, and it's also handled in a very cool manner. You could kind of take it as a tonal thing on the movie. But there is also these two are not the only colors, because if you look at Shilpa's house, there is a lot of green in that house. So how does the green figure into it? Because that is not a primary color. It's something that we're going to have to wait for theories to come up to kind of relate to that. Rajiv says, I relate the police station millipede to the cop. The cop said, இதை வெளியே விட்டுருங்க, யாராவது மெஜிஸ்ட்ரேட் போறாங்க, and finally died by யாரோ by TV. Yeah, I think it's also the fact that sometimes, there are all kinds of creatures around us, that we discussed that, but also we find that sometimes, the compassion that we show to certain things is not the compassion that we show to other things. So this cop is saying, I want to save the centipede or millipede or whatever it is, and I'm going to be so careful about it. I'm going to pick it up with a paper and put it outside. But he doesn't show any compassion to the Samantha character or the Shilpa character. And you find this with a lot of psychopaths. They love a dog. Like, for instance, in Silence of the Lambs, you find this guy who's doing these horrible things to women. He's skinning them, he's starving them. But he's very fond of his dog, and he's very attached to the dog. So I think that's the contrast there, because like we can be very one way towards some creatures and another way. That's another contrast, because this entire film exists in that kind of a duality, like we can be this and we can be this. Even the names of a lot of people are true. The guy called Vasant is also called Muttapaf. Shilpa is also called Manikam. Arpudam is also called Dhanasekar is his name. And if you look at Dhanasekar, he has a Hindu past and whatever religion now present. Leela has played Aman role and she's played pawn role. So there's this duality. If you look at it, there is every character, every situation, there is always this kind of duality, which takes me back to that blue and red light. That duality is there everywhere, sometimes it's like, it's even on Shilpa's sari, it's blue and red. So I think that duality is something that you see everywhere in this movie. Ashwin Ramachandran says, towards the end, there is a close-up on the pistol that Berlin keeps on his wife before proceeding towards Samantha. Is this the use of Chekhovs gun theory to mislead the audience? Was there any similar cinematic rules that were broken? I don't think too many of the audience know about the Chekhovs gun principle, but I think basically it's kind of, I think, making us wonder what is going to happen, because he's keeping that gun there and making us wonder if there is a thing there. But I really haven't figured out what the close-up of the pistol is there, because he's leaving the pistol there and he's kind of heading towards her, but then this guy is handcuffed and he can't get to the pistol. So it's really one thing that's out there that we cannot, and Samantha is also far away, so she cannot get to this pistol. So again, I don't think that's really connected to this particular incident of Chekhov's gun at all. It's something else. Sridharan says, have you noticed the Singam Perumal Kanniranjali? Yes, I did. And I wrote about it in my review. And it comes when Shilpa is searching for her son that she thinks she has lost. Which is why I think it's part of a larger cinematic universe of Thiagarajan Kumararaja, because this morning I got a Facebook post that says that the guy who acts as Muttapav is also in Sudakavam, which is not Thiagarajan Kumararaja, but it's kind of the same universe of people. So that's another universe as well. Ash49 says, I would love to know your thoughts on the entire timeline of events. It doesn't seem to be the event taking place in the same day. Certainly wanted to know your take on it. So many people getting confused about the timelines because, yes, while you're watching it, it's a little disorienting. And I wrote about this in my review as well. Because the first time you notice a kind of a timeline getting fractured is when we go to the Mysskin scene, Arpudam. And we know that Arpudam is locked inside a door. And why is he locked inside the door, right? At that point, we don't know. But the door, this Ramasamy bangs the door and he says, something has happened to your son or Kuchi Kutirchi or something like that. So they go running, right? But only after that do we see the boys running and the boy running towards his mother, falling on the screwdriver and all that kind of stuff. So there is a slight disorienting. But then if you notice, if you've seen the movie fully, you will notice that now you know the reason that Mysskin was not appearing before that little congregation of people. Why he was not coming and preaching? Because his faith has been shattered. Because the previous night he has met Shilpa in the subway. And she has told him that basically he realized he thought he was special. Tsunami Underwear saved only him in that whole thing. Lacha Lachama people went and died. But he's the only one who was saved. But Shilpa then says, I was also saved, and she says, I just embraced a stone. It was Verum Kalludan Sami. It was not some anything else. So his entire faith is shattered. So he has locked himself up in a room and he's refusing to appear before his congregation. And then when this the son accident happens, he rushes out and then tries to bring him back and see if that faith is still something that's there. And then finally when they take the boy away, he gets really this thing, and then all the diamond stuff and all that happens. So that is the timeline of events. So Shilpa and Mysskin, Shilpa's story happens first, because when she meets Mysskin, she's already lost the boy, which means that the time that she landed at a house and all was the previous day. So the previous day she lands, does all those things, the Bugs character harasses her, this, that is, she ends up in the subway, meets Mysskin, then the next morning, all the other things kind of happen. So I don't think the timeline is that confusing. It's confusing when you watch it at the beginning a bit, but once the movie goes on and you think back about it, it's pretty clear that, because he actually says the words, Netiki Enna Nadandhathu Theriyuma Ramasamy. So that's very, very, very clear. That's two timelines there. Deepa Gopinath says, I just could not get the cat reference. In the movie we talked about it. Even the poster has a cat purring sounds. There is a cat in the scene, boy's t-shirt. Please let me know. Even the kettle in the dance house had a cat figurine. I think it's maybe the Schrodinger thing, which we talked about right now. The fact that the duality that we just talked about here, right? Everything is a dual state. Two names, two religions, a person being both the Amman and a porn actress and things like that, and the duality of the Schrodinger cat experiment where the cat could be dead or alive, or I think that's where the whole thing is going. I think that's where the whole thing is going. I don't know, but hopefully we'll get some answers to this soon. Srinivasan K says, I'm hoping it has to do with Schrodinger's cat. That's exactly what he says. The famous cat thought experiment, cat put in a box. At any point, that's what Thalen says, observation. The cat is basically, that thing is that it can exist in multiple states. That's quantum theory, that before something is measured, it can exist in multiple states. And the people in this movie also exist in more than one state. And one boy is literally duplicated. So Satharaja Vid says, is there any connection between Shilpa cursed Berlin by keeping a hand in his head, TV falls on Berlin's head? I think you could take this as, yes, that is a cause and effect thing, that she curses him, because in the earlier scene, she blesses this man where she gets $20 from. You could take it as a curse, or you could take it as a very random event, because this man who tried to punish her or tried to take advantage of her gets killed while trying to take advantage of another woman the same way the next day. So is this because of Shilpa's curse, Or is it because of random events of the boys just happening to throw the TV and the TV landing on the set and killing him? I don't know. But that's another great excuse to talk about. I'm saying it's what you choose to believe, because again, we are talking about duality. It could be, you could choose this or you could choose this explanation. The TV again reminds me is that another thing that's carefully used in the way of the sound is used in this movie is that when the boys throw the TV, the plane flies overhead, right? That's a time cue, because when the TV falls on Berlin's head, again, that we hear the plane, and that's how we know that those two are simultaneous events. The difference is usually when we see simultaneous events happening, the editing goes, the boys throw the TV, cut to the TV falling on Berlin's head. But here what happens is there is an entire 5-minute scene happening after the boys throw the TV and before the TV falls on his head, and the rhythm is very new to us. So some of the people seem to have forgotten that the boys threw the TV. They just thought maybe the boys destroyed the TV, and there's actually somebody who asked me if the TV fell from the plane. No, it didn't, because the boys threw the TV and the TV landed on Berlin's head. Ganapati says, what is the point of the alien? I didn't get it, your views. What exactly timeline? Bit of confusing. Could you please clarify? All of this we have talked about. But thank you for sending in this question. I have two questions to ask, says Dian. Do you think the alien thing in the end diluted the mood of the movie? How is it justified? No, I don't think it diluted the movie at all, because this movie is a bit cosmic and it's talking about, our place in the scheme of things, how there are things lower than us, how there are things higher than us in the evolutionary pattern. And do you notice a striking similarity between Super Deluxe and the Simbu Anushka star of Onam? Yes, in a way, the interlock stories and all that, that was more like at a story level, and I think this is at a higher level. So, but yeah, there are some narrative level similarities between the two films. Ashwin Kumar says, Super Deluxe explicitly stated about post-marital life of a woman who did B-grade movies and the ways in which trans women are shamed in society. Can you think of any other movie which talked about these facts as intensively as Super Deluxe? There's this Kannada movie called Nati Charami where Shruti Hariharan plays a character who's lost a husband, and she's a widow and she has physical needs and she doesn't want to be judged for having those physical needs. So the movie is very, very considerate about her having sex with somebody else. There have been other, I'm actually not able to think of too many. I'm having a brain freeze now, but I'll think of something and I'll let you know. Arul31 says, in an interview with Thiagarajan Kumararaja, he said that the dialogue in the trailer spoken by Vijay Sethupathi represent the theme of the film. Can you explain how? Because as things are tightening around us, we kind of make that grasp for one last drop of pleasure, and that kind of, everybody's life is kind of, has these tough situations, and I think they all kind of at the end, make a reach for, screw it, and this is what I'm kind of having to go for. I don't know if it's a direct parallel, because for instance you could say the little boy Ashwant Rasukuti, for him what's important is not the circumstances of the father being a mother or whatever, being a woman now, the boys are teasing, whatever it is now. For him, it's very, very simple. He's got that drop of honey in the trailer. He's got his father back. That is all that matters to him. He doesn't care about anything else. So I think that is how the kind of that philosophy works. CB Kumaran says, even though concept-wise this leagues apart, it did not turn out as organic as Aaranya Kaandam. Some scenes are very labored, did not feel like a TKR film. Do you think because of other writers, the film didn't feel like a TKR film? I don't know what is a TKR film, because there's only been Aaranya Kaandam before this. So I don't know how you define a TKR film. Whether that is the TKR film or whether this is a TKR film, with dual states. I don't know which ones is the actual TKR film. But see, Aaranya Kaandam is, I'll tell you why it's more organic, because it's very simple and there is a very cause and effect kind of story. Whereas this is a much more sprawling, sophisticated story, and I did not think that they were labored. I think maybe you're talking about the long scenes at the police station between Berlin and Shilpa, and at the warehouse between Berlin and the Samantha character. There were certainly long scenes, but that length was meant to make us uncomfortable. It's meant to make us shift in our seats. Like if you've seen David Fincher's Zodiac, you will see that it's a long movie. Okay, so I think it's about 3 hours or something like that. It's about the search for a serial killer. At first, when they think that the clues are coming, the stories happen the movie moves fast. But then at one point, they get stuck. And at that point, the editing rhythm really slows down. So as the characters in the movie get stuck, the movie also, in a way, they're kind of caught in the same place. The movie also, they're not able to move ahead. And the editing pattern mimics this by not really progressing at a fast clip. It's almost as if the movie is also kind of petering down, and as the investigation is petering down, this is not a. So when you look at it, you're going to say, much our first half was so fast, but the second half is so slow. You can't look at all movies like that, because there is a certain effect that certain directors try to bring, and I think that's what this is, rather than labored or whatever. Adrian David says, guess the SI's name Berlin is a clever nod to the Berlin Wall. Whoa! That divided East and West Berlin in the film. Berlin comes as a hindrance between Shilpa and Rasukuti, and later between Mabel and Mughal, and things are restored to normal after the fall of Berlin. You never know. You never know, dude. That's like a very creative and amazing explanation. Parthiban wants to know, why did they keep the title Super Deluxe? Why did Mrinalini character enters the film? That we've talked about, the alien bit. Why the rowdy gang sent the three boys to Mrinalini's house? That again, it's not the rowdy gang exactly. They know that the set has some money and they want to see if they can use that money to buy the TV set. Why did the title Super Deluxe come about? See, I'll tell you one thing. Sometimes you get a sense of something, you feel something, but it's very hard to explain it in words. And Super Deluxe is one of those titles. It's like, if you notice, the word can be used for everything from condoms to hotel suites to all kinds of things. It's like it's an extra level of something. And I think the film is kind of doing this. I'm doing a bad job of explaining this, but the film is kind of going for that extra level of trying to explain something about us that we probably don't know. And so I think the film fits. I feel it fits. I'm like just not able to explain why it fits exactly. Now Rajagopal Sriraman saying, what do the words in the background signify? Magic event, real life written on the wall where Vijay Sethupathi loses his son, and also seen in the background where the boys try to poison tea in Maya Plaza. Super Deluxe inside the theater where boys head to kind of. Super Deluxe is all over the place. The ice cream van has Super Deluxe and things like that. Magic event, real life again is like these things that we think are magical are actually happening around us, and it's up to us to think whether they are actually magical events or whether there is a pattern to them, there's a physical explanation to them, because for the alien, what she does to this Gaji character is perfectly normal within the normal realm of her experience, whereas when we look at it, it looks like a magical thing. And so I think, once again, I talk about this dual thing, right? I talked about it a lot. It's like reality versus magic, like all the other things. This is another dual state in the movie. Praveen Sudevan says, want to know your thoughts on the last 15 to 20 minutes. A lot of things spelt out which goes against the show don't tell school of thought. Does that make Super Deluxe a message heavy movie? No, it's not a message heavy movie. A philosophy is not a message. Like if you notice, Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia has the message, if you want to call it a message, right at the beginning, where the principle of coincidences is kind of explained through a series of incidents, and there's a voiceover constantly going, but that's a setup. It sets up the movie. It's not a message. A message is when somebody says, like, gives these heavy duty things about obey the law, amma kannalladhu sei, that kind of thing, where they literally come out and spell the message. Another thing about the show don't tell concept, it is a concept where while you are showing, you are not telling. Like supposing I am speaking to you and somebody in the narrator says, Baradwaj Rangan was talking to the camera. That's show don't tell. But if I am speaking to you and the voiceover says something else, then it doesn't mean literally that. If there is a little bit of gap between what is being shown and what is being told, and the gap becomes the interesting thing to kind of thing. So literally what Manushaputran is talking about, the crucible of life and lightning striking there and all that, that's not there in the movie. That's not shown at all in the movie. But that's there. You can sense it from the other part. So I don't know if I would consider this a message movie at all. It's the way we consider other things like message movies. Like if you take a look at the recent Cheran movie, Thirumanam, I think it was called. You're talking about dowry panna naladilla, like ayyo ivlo salary for clothes and all that. In the do we oru vaati potukra ஒரு ரிசப்ஷனுக்காக போட்டுக்கிற குர்த்தாக்காக இவ்வளோ செலவழிக்கணுமா. ஸோ ஆல் தீஸ் திங்ஸ் லிட்டரலி ஆஃப்டர் த சீன் ஹேப்பன்ஸ் தே ஆர் கம் அக்ராஸ் ஆஸ் டிஸ்கஷன்ஸ் ஆர் வாட் எவர் இட் இஸ். That's a message, because that's what you want, the exact thing you want the audience to realize. But Thiagarajan Kumararaja is not telling you that, dude, I want you to from now on consider everything to be in a state of duality. I want you to always remember that that everything has this other thing. No, he's not telling you that. He's basically telling you, this is my philosophy, his philosophy, and If you want to run with it, run with it. If you don't want to run with it, if you want to reject it, reject it. But that's different from it being a message-heavy movie. Karthik Rangarajan says in the climax, Fahadh says, police will only try to connect Inspector and Vembu's lover, suggesting they will escape. Are they teasing us, the audience? Are we like the police? Are we trying to connect the dots of the film and let the big picture escape? Ha ha ha. Yes, that's what it is. I think too many people have gotten so intricately involved in what do those plastic bags mean, and what does this key mean, and what is this and what is that, that the larger picture, I don't know if people are actually enjoying this movie, because for me it was such an enjoyable picture overall in terms of the way everything came together. I hope people are not sacrificing the, I don't know, what is it, wood for the trees for the wood, whatever it is. That thing is not happening here. Manisha says also the relevance of the centipede train of Aang's specific color, teal rusty red, has been talked about. Karthik says, while all the characters get away, in the end, Berlin alone dies. Is that the only bad act in the whole story? I understand that Vembu, Shilpa and Leela have done no wrong and it is society's POV. What about the young boys, or is it all chaos? It is all chaos. Who told you that Shilpa hasn't done wrong? Shilpa has been the reason for two boys being, disfigured and put out as beggars. If you notice the subway scene, listen to the subway scene, the guilt of seeing those boys there is what makes her come back and see her son and her family like, என் பையன் புத்திசாலி பையன் என்னோட நல்லா இருக்கிற பையன், that boy, she wants that thing, that guilt has made her come back to this thing, not any love for the boy or any love for the wife. Because if you notice, one of the greatest scenes in the movie for me is that Shilpa scene where she's putting on a sari and Gayathrie is watching horrified because she's unable to come to terms with this whole transformation, and the husband is changing into a sari in front of a wife, and instead of comforting her, he just says, ஒரு பொண்ணால இன்னொரு பொண்ணை புரிஞ்சுக்க முடியும், one line like that. He just says, I understand what you're going through. He doesn't offer even one bit of comfort. And the killer comes when after everything, he just adjusts the wig and looks at the mirror and says, நல்லா இருக்கேனா. He wants to know, she wants to know if she looks good, and she wants his assurance from a woman who is completely broken, whose life has been shattered right then. That itself shows you that this is not some noble angel that's come down to earth. It's like, that is as flawed a character. Shilpa is as flawed a character as everybody else. So I don't think that there is any character here who is, 100% noble or whatever it is. In fact, I read one interpretation that the character that enters the building in the Ramya Krishnan story, in the porn film, is actually Mughal, because he's an actor, and this might have been one of the things that he did. It's possible, maybe that's what he did. So I would say Berlin alone dies because he is kind of trying to impose a certain punishment on these characters for what they did. So if you look at it from the Tamil cinema point of view, this woman acted in porn, she should get punished because karpu and all that kind of stuff. This Shilpa character should get punished because she abandoned her family. So she is forced to do that stuff in the police station. So it's again a morality thing. You did this harm, so karma is going to come and bite you on the ass. Then there is Samantha. You cheated on your husband, so it's only fair that your husband watches as this man tries to rape you. So, but the film doesn't go there because this man, this conventional godlike morality is not happening there. I wrote about this in my review as well. If you notice, it says that the absence of a higher judgmental power is what makes this happen. So it's all chaos out there in Super Deluxe. Crescent Barra says, in one such movie where one category of audience you say, படம் நல்லா இருக்கு but எனக்கு பிடிக்கல, I think there would be few feeling the same. Possible. பிடிக்கிறது பிடிக்காதது is more like something like saying I enjoyed it or whatever it is. But why don't you just go to a movie and say, I experienced it? Like you go to so many movies just for the sake of enjoyment. Why don't you go to one odd movie and say, I went there simply for the experience of it? That's the way to look at a movie, right? Aditya Gangadhar says, why only Makkal Selvan is making such movies? Other star heroes are not even daring to attempt such roles because he wants him as an actor. Because he views his profession as, let me see what interesting role I can do next, and he's not really interested in, I want to be this level of hero, that level of hero. So he does a Junga, which costs a lot of money. He does this, and where he's in almost every frame, and then he does a Super Deluxe where he's in probably 45 minutes of the movie. So that's his thing. His thing is like, I want to be as different as possible in every movie, whereas all the other stars are on a trip of how much bigger can I get as an actor, how much more salary can I command, how much more market can I command. That's the big difference. Hemant Surendran says, do you feel the makers could have avoided the monologue? We've talked about that. Spoon feeding the viewer, I don't agree that it's spoon feeding, because it's not exactly the same thing that's happening in the movie. At any point did you feel the director's politics protrude over the normal flow? Preachy? No, I didn't feel it become preachy, because the stuff that Mughal says about the system and all that, it could just be him. He could be just like, he says he wants to become a politician, right? So there's a justification for his rants. Maybe he's just practicing all these rants in order to one day go on stage and say these kinds of things. So he's saying, from an actor, I'm going to enter politics. That's his thing. So you have a reason for its appearing. It's not that the director randomly coming and putting words into Mughal's mouth. That is my philosophy, and that's what Mughal is saying. Would you rate Shilpa as a career best performance as of yet? I would say we should look forward to this career, because I think there has a lot of great performances I think there are in store. Java Vattam Kolam says, let's divide the story into three: Fahadh and family, Mysskin family, Vijay Sethupathi and family. Vijay Sethupathi changed Mysskin's life and Mysskin's story changed Fahadh's life, but I could not find any Vijay Fahadh connecting moments in the film. Of course, there's a police officer in common if mix anything. No, there is there? I don't think this is a flaw. You've asked if it's a flaw, because Vijay Sethupathi changed Mysskin's life because he made him question his whole belief system. And Mysskin's story changed Fahad's life because the Berlin story again happens there. We are having a character inflict a similar kind of torture on Vijay Sethupathi and Fahad. And that's what happens, in two of those stories. A very prolonged scene of sexual torture happens in both those stories. And that's the connecting moment in the Vijay and Fahad story. Jack Durden says, can you discuss the karma factor? There is no karma factor in this movie, because people do not get what should be coming to them according to either Tamil society norms or Tamil cinema norms. By the end of the film, each character is opposite end of spectrum in terms of beliefs. Character rightly deserve the reaction for their respective actions beforehand. Corrupt cop dies because of desire he forced on other people. Shilpa's son leaves her for at least some time to make Shilpa realize the pain of separation. But at the end, there's a dialogue delivered by the doctor in the Baradwaj Rangan which said there is no relevance. It's the irony or the very idea of the film. That's the very idea of the film, because you are seeing it as cause and effect, whereas everything is just chaos. Like how life began out of utter chaos. That is why that speech at the end is not some random message. It's a philosophy that ties up, because till then, what are you thinking? You're saying that this happened because of this. This cop died because of all this. But then at the end, the speech makes us realize that it's not because of anything. There is no karma actually in this movie. It's all chaos. That is the last question. Thank you for sending so many questions. We had about 350 and we could only take so much. I think there were a lot of repetitions also. So all of you who sent in your questions, thank you so much. See you again in the next episode of Ask BR, and keep watching Film Companion South.